I'll ask Gareth now to make a start. Yeah, the recording and live stream has started, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for confirming. So welcome to tonight's Place Scrutiny Committee. And as usual, I've just got some housekeeping to run through before we begin. Can I remind everyone present that this remote meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? And if a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand using the remote raise hand function? If a participant raises their hand via that function and is not subsequently invited to speak by myself, please can you just turn your camera on to indicate that you want to speak, or place a message in the chat function. And when invited to address committee by myself, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this isn't possible for any reason, just let me know or bring it to the attention of a Democratic Services officer as soon as possible. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. And as I've already said, the chat function may be used to highlight any technical difficulties. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they're addressing the committee, just let myself or an officer know. So as I say, welcome all committee and non-committee elected members, co-opted representatives, tenant reps, cabinet members, or officers, and to anyone watching the live meeting broadcast. Moving straight onto the agenda, are there any apologies for absence, please?
Chair, I've had one apology from Mr. Glyn Niblett, one of our tenant representatives.
Thank you very much. Councillor Iannucci?
Apologies from Councillor Penn, please.
Thank you. I think Councillor Penn is hoping to join us later on this evening, but if we can record his apologies just in case that's not possible, please.
Will do, Chair.
Thank you very much. And then moving on to agenda item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of May. Are members happy to approve? And if so, please can I have a proposer? Councillor Charles? Councillor Champion. Thank you very much, Councillor Champion. And can I have a seconder?
Yes, happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ernest. And now we move on to declarations of interest. Are there any, please? No? Okay. So we move on to agenda item 4, placemaking plans. We're joined by Nicola Summers-Smith from the Creative Community team and Phil Chappell. Hello, Phil, the Operational Manager for Regeneration. Just to say the report is before us tonight to update committee on progress and for any comments to be made back to Cabinet or to the place boards. So over to you, Nicola and Phil. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'll just hand over to Nicola in a minute, who's going to kick off with the presentation. Thanks for having us tonight. There have been previous cabinet reports that have agreed where the council has signed the placemaking charter, and Nicola will go into a little bit of that in a moment. But I guess we want to talk about where we've got to, how we've got there, any lessons learned so far, and to go through some of the governance and funding arrangements that we put in place to deliver the plans. So I'll come back to them in a minute, but I'll hand over to Nicola now.
Okay. Good evening. Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Chair. If you'd be kind enough to share the presentation. Thank you very much. So thank you for inviting us here this evening to talk about placemaking. My name is Nicola Sumner-Smith. I'm the team leader for the Creative Communities team within the Place Directorate, and my team have been tasked with developing the placemaking plans for the Vale of Glamorgan. So I'm hoping this presentation will give a bit of a introduction into what is placemaking, and as Phil said, where we are to date, and how we take this forward. Next slide, please. So placemaking has been defined by the Design Commission for Wales, who have been invited by Welsh Government to partner on this. And they describe placemaking as something that involves working collaboratively across sectors and disciplines to comprehensively consider the future development of distinctive and vibrant places. I think it's important to note that development doesn't necessarily mean the built environment, although it can. It also refers to a number of different ways in which we develop a place, whether it's its culture, its sense of place, its people, its sense of community, and so forth. Thank you. As a council, as an organisation, we've been encouraged by the Welsh Government to sign the Placemaking Charter. And there's just a note on screen there that says, in signing the Placemaking Wales Charter, my organisation agrees to support placemaking in all relevant areas of our work and to promote the following principles in planning, design and management of new and existing places. So the principles are very briefly laid out, as you can see. So as I noted, it's not just about built development, it's also about considering the people and the community, the mix of use in a space in order to encourage that vibrancy and the sustainability, how people move within a place, but also get to the place, considering its location within that wider context, consideration of the public realm and the local identity. So the Placemaking Charter and the encouragement from the Welsh Government is that we develop a placemaking plan for each of our 4 towns, and that's the encouragement across Wales. In part, that's been described as a necessity in order to unlock future funding from the Welsh Government, particularly in relation to the Transforming Towns available funding, which Phil will talk a little bit more about shortly. And just going back to the what is placemaking, and the Design Commission for Wales described it as working collaboratively across all sectors and disciplines. So just wanted to explain briefly what we've done to develop these plans, who's been involved and how we think that we've achieved that collaboration across those sectors and disciplines. So just start with the circle in the middle, just to note that we have set up an internal placemaking group. So that's a group of officers from across all the directorates and a number of teams that have a real stake in developing our residents' places and the places that we manage and look after. That group meets regularly and works collaboratively to all share what's on their agenda, really, from their area of the council, so that we can ensure that we are doing that across sector, working collaboratively, and that we are generating ideas, products, projects, and working with our communities in a way that is holistic. We've also worked really closely with the town councils, and this has been a real positive part of the placemaking process. So the placemaking plans are co-commissioned by the town councils, respectively, for each of the towns, and with the Vale of Glamorgan Council. Another aspect of that, where that's worked really well, is where we've had ward members that are also on the town councils as well, having a real stake in the development of the towns, and working collaboratively, not just in meetings at the town councils, but also really proactively supporting the team as we go out and do more of that community consultation, working with the local residences and businesses and third sectors. So it really has been a really positive joint venture. So in the process of developing the plans, my team have been doing some extensive consultation over a period of about 2 years now. So we started with Cowbridge, who kindly put themselves forward as the guinea pigs. And were happy to sort of learn with us. And then the other plans for the other towns have come on a little bit later. So we've done lots of meeting the community and residents in their places where they currently visit, or events and activities that they are meeting at, to try and meet a real cross-section of people that are coming out and about. But we've also done some really targeted work with those local residents where they live and in their local pubs and community centres, cafes, groups and activities. Likewise, we've done some really targeted work with local businesses where we have brought them together to discuss the future of their towns. And we've done that in collaboration with colleagues across the Place Directorate and beyond to have those really detailed discussions. And likewise, we've worked with lots of third sector organisations to understand what they're hearing about what's needed in their communities and their places. So we have 4 placemaking plans that have been developed, 1 for each town. The Cowbridge, Penarth and Lantwick major plans have been taken to Cabinet and have been signed off at this point in time. And Barry will follow shortly, a little bit later, just because of the size and complexity of working in such a large town. I should also note that placemaking plans are an evolving resource and document. So whilst they've been signed off at this point in time by both the Cabinet and the respective town councils, the idea is that this becomes a live plan to work towards for now and the future. With a set of project ideas and objectives, which I'll briefly go through shortly, but that those plans can be adapted as communities and as needs adapt. So that we will be putting a mechanism in place where we can update those plans and so that we can revisit those with both the town councils and our Cabinet and bring them forward for scrutiny as well. So on the next few slides, I've just got a real snapshot of what's in some of the plans. As you can appreciate, they're comprehensive and they're detailed and there's a lot of information in them, and it would be difficult to go through them in their entirety in this space. But we just wanted to give you a flavour of the type of thing that's in each plan for each town. So illustrated here are the 4 of the sort of bigger projects or opportunity areas for Lantwick Major. And while some of these seem like quite big and ambitious schemes, it's also worth noting that all big and ambitious schemes often start with small changes, whether that's a change to culture or activity or policy. And that sometimes they might get kick-started with a pilot activity, testing an activity, or testing a change in the way things are done. And also to highlight that each plan, whilst it does have some large and ambitious and long-term plans in there for developments or changing the way we use places, there's also a considerable number of small standalone and medium standalone projects as well. On the next slide, it just briefly shows a page from the Lantwick Major plan. Each plan has been developed in partnership, as I've said, with the community and the town council, and we've also worked with a consultant on each one. We've worked with a different consultant group on each plan because we felt that each town is very different and each consultant's perspective and view is very different, and so we chose the support that we felt was right for that town. So each plan has a slightly different look and feel. It also has a different set of objectives and a different set of plans and projects to meet those objectives. So this is just a snapshot of the Lantwick Major plan, which shows you that we're focusing on opportunities that celebrate, connect and support Lantwick Major to thrive. So on the next slide, please, we have a quick snapshot of Penarth as well. So as you can see, the look and feel is slightly different. So in here, we've got some suggestion about revitalising some of the public spaces, using car parks for different activity, maybe on an ad hoc basis. This is about revitalising particular areas and also recognising the positive assets and attributes of each town, and having a look at also where the need is greatest. So in the bottom right corner there, you'll just see a really quick snapshot of a map with some circles on it. That's just to demonstrate that not all of the plans focus just on the town centre, although there will possibly be more of a focus on the town centres depending on the funding we are accessing to deliver the plans. But each of the planners tried to look at the town as a whole. And through the consultation process, we've also tried to target surrounding villages and communities that feel associated with that town and perhaps use the services and facilities that that town offers. Next slide, please. So this is a quick snapshot of the Penarth placemaking plan. So you can see slightly different to the Lantuit Major one in terms of the number of objectives and the type. That's because that's just what's been determined by the community and all those different stakeholders. So whilst there's some crossover, so using words like thriving communities and so forth, there will be crossover from one town to the next, but each one is distinct. Next slide, please. So again, slightly different look and feel to the Cowbridge plan. This just highlights 4 of the opportunity areas that have been identified in Cowbridge for development. Again, recognising that some of these facilities and some of these areas are already a really valued asset in the community. But what we're doing is working with those communities and stakeholders to determine how those assets can work better for the communities, and listening to what they say in terms of what they'd like to see developed in the future. And again, slightly different look and feel, just a quick snapshot of the objectives and the type of thing that are the priorities that have come out of this process through working with the communities and the stakeholders in Cowbridge. And then finally, and certainly not least, Barry. So again, this is just a quick snapshot that demonstrates one opportunity area for development, and then just at the top, just some diagrams showing different things that we're considering. So some of it is about the town centre in King Square and making that a vibrant hub. Some of the consideration has been about how people access the town and travel around it and through it and in and out of it. And then the next slide on Barry, again, just sort of briefly shows that snapshot of the objectives that we're working towards. So all of the project ideas that are in the plans relate back to the objectives that have been set for the town, and those objectives have been set through that process of that stakeholder engagement, both with communities and all those sectors and internal departments that I've referred to. Just briefly, a bit of an overview on the process, a bit of reflection on what we felt has worked well and what we felt has been a particular challenge in developing the plans. So with regards to what's worked well, that relationship with the town council and the local members has been really invaluable. It's been really good to stand alongside town councillors and members when we've been speaking to the public, but also putting out information and gathering it back, so that we are on the same page, essentially, and working towards the same set of objectives for each of our towns. Sorry, if we could just jump back. Thank you. I'll just run through these before we go on to the next one. The extensive community consultation has been really informative in developing the plans, but also has been a really positive process. So whilst we've been out there, badged as the council, obviously people want to talk to us about issues, and we've tried to help them with those as well by putting them in touch with the right people. But it's actually been really, the feedback we've had has been really positive, where people have really valued the council coming out and talking to the residents face to face. As I said, we've worked with different consultants. We've had a different voice for each town, and we've developed some really good partnerships, both internally and externally. One example being worked really closely with the youth service, who have helped us reach that particular demographic, both out and about in the communities, but also supported us to talk to pupils directly in the comprehensive schools. And just a quick note on the challenges. Disengaged communities are still hard to reach, but we have developed comprehensive engagement plans that have tried to tackle all cross sectors of the community, and have worked with different organisations to help us reach the people, to make sure that the plans are truly representative. It's been quite a challenge to manage people's expectations. As you can imagine, a plan that produces a set of ideas and opportunities has to be married with the expectation that just because it's in the plan, it doesn't mean it will happen tomorrow, and it doesn't mean that there's funding available straight away or the capacity to deliver. Likewise, individuals' priorities have been a challenge to manage, where some voices are quite loud, but their individual ideas aren't necessarily reflected in the wider community. So it's been quite a sort of diplomatic process to manage that type of expectation. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, the timescales and just the enormity of the tasks have been a particular challenge. Next slide, please. Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Phil for this one, please.
Thanks, Nicola. Just going to talk a couple of slides really about the funding that's available and what happens next steps with governance. So this is part of the Welsh Government Transforming Towns programme, and the Welsh Government has given funding to support the development of the plans. Now, this funding I'm talking about, 24, 25, 25, 26, is the Transforming Towns allocation to the Vale for the whole county. So it may not look like a lot of money, and it isn't really a lot of money for 4 towns. But I think what we're looking at as well is several strategic sites within the plans. And what we do then is we will be able to apply for strategic project funding for X million if we need to pull together quite a large package. And I think one of the things that we found through this process is actually it doesn't have to cost a fortune. It doesn't have to be multi-million-pound public realm schemes. It can be small kind of incremental changes that you make within a town to make the dwell time longer, to make it a better place to to feel safer at night, or to want to go out at night. And I think the plans have allowed us to do that and identify some quick wins as well, and there's similar quick wins in several other towns. So I think the governance I'll talk about now, we'll start discussing allocating that funding. We're also looking at a package of loan funding to specifically target empty properties. We've had several products before, and we're discussing with Welsh Government about how we can create a kind of global fund with all 4 towns. We've also got a placemaking reserve set aside to match fund specifically strategic projects, so that the council has money to lever in larger pots. We've also got to look at other grant funding as well, from whether it's lottery, foundations, and the committee may be obviously aware of the plans for neighbourhood funding that's coming for Barry specifically. The one thing I would say about that, although there's a focus of town centres inevitably in the placemaking plans, that funding is run by an independent board, so it isn't the council's money to administer, but there may be projects within the placemaking plan that the board would want to fund. Private investment's going to form part of this as well, possibly a mix of grant and loan. And also it's started to inform Section 106 funding. I think Cambridge was one of the early ones with that, where you're really using data and need to drive the targeting of Section 106 and also making it go further. So where you might only need 25% of Section 106 plus a bit of grant plus a bit of match funding from a town council, it's going to help extend the life of some of those pots of money. Next slide, thanks. Previously, there was a report that came to Cabinet around new governance for regeneration in the Vale. So this is now being implemented with the first meeting of the new Vale Place Board, which has strategic oversight of all of the plans, and each town board as well. Each board will have a town. Each town will have a board, rather, excuse me. And on that, I think the Vale's unique in that I think we're the only county in Wales that's done the co-commissioning approach with the town councils. Felt that it was important. I mean, there is an approach we could have taken, which is to, commission architects to present their vision for these towns. But really, we know from our past work in specifically rural Vale that you get much better results by really doing the community mapping, involving local people, getting local people to really lead on some of this work as well. And I'd like to thank, I think, some of the councillors that have been involved, board members that have been involved in the placemaking in some of the towns are on the committee tonight. So big thanks to you, because it has made a huge difference, because, people invariably trust you. And, I've stood in pubs and supermarkets with some of you talking to local residents. So thank you for your help. We've also got an investment advisory group, so that will sit between the individual town boards and the place board, and that's a technical advisory group made up of legal, finance, equality, Project Zero representatives who will comment on business cases as they emerge and make recommendations to the Vale Place Board and Cabinet. As Nicola touched on, it's a way of working this, so the whole council has signed up to the placemaking charter. It's not just something that happens in place. Every department within the council has to look at decisions through a placemaking lens now, which has been really good. And we've had some really good discussions with social services about, how older people use towns, and bus links as well between towns and care facilities. So it's really spanning all departments, and it will be continually reviewed. And I imagine that there's scope here for Scrutiny to do some task and finish work potentially, as the plans hopefully will get delivered as well. We had a meeting of the regional South East Wales group with Welsh Government in Pontypridd the other day, and they're 3 years into their placemaking plan. And I really noticed the difference in the town of how sort of small interventions, and obviously you've got some big ones there as well, but have really transformed certain areas of the town, feeling quite safe, vibrant shopping, the market there was fantastic. So I really hope we'll be able to kind of emulate some of the best practice that's happening elsewhere. So yeah, that's it. There's some contact details here. We've got Nicola's team that can answer any questions or come out and talk to you if you would like that. So I'll hand over to the questions.
Thank you very much, Phil, and thank you, Nicola. Really, really interesting presentation. Great to see the progress that's being made. Any questions or comments from anyone, please? Councillor William. Councillor William, we can't hear you. Did you put your headphones in after you joined the meeting? Because that can sometimes be a problem. You need to, yeah. Do you want to either take them off or leave and rejoin? And we still can't hear you, I'm afraid.
You may have to take them out, Councillor William, altogether out of the device and try the audio then. If not, you'll have to rejoin the meeting without them on, and then your audio should work. Okay.
Okay, so while we wait for Councillor William to resolve that technical issue. Councillor Ernest, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't expect to be on first, and that's not necessarily a privilege this evening. Can I first of all commend the team on the plan for Penarth? I'm not going to talk about the other towns because I think on an evening such as this, even though we are Vale councillors, I think we can best speak to our own particular towns if we live in a town. Obviously, if we live in the country, those councillors may well have a wider view. I think that the Penarth plan has some interesting proposals in it. I'm particularly interested in those surrounding Penarth Station, Penarth Town Station, and the proposals for a better integration of the transport. Only this week we are supposed to be getting the new trains coming into Penarth. Unfortunately, they haven't come in. I found perhaps they haven't got the fuel for them yet or whatever, but they will be coming any day now. And with a 15-minute train service, not only does it take people out of Penarth, but it also can bring people into Penarth, those very valuable visitors, which help our local businesses and the tourism economy so well. I can see that many of the ideas have come from groups in the town. I do hesitate slightly on some of the ideas without wishing to be controversial. The ideas are often always good, but whilst they may possibly look at setting up the scheme, it's the revenue costs that worry me very much. And revenue funding, as we all know, Chairman, is extremely hard to obtain. You may get it for 2 or 3 years. After that, revenue funding has to carry on and on and on. And that's not always so easy. I'm also perhaps slightly disappointed as the aspirational aspects of the plan. I think with a plan, and I'll call it a 10-year plan for the moment, I think there should be more aspirational aspects for Penarth and bringing in some greater ideas. The ideas of landscaping and improving the town are good, excellent. Improving people movement are good. But what else is there? What else really? Where's the big scheme? You know, the big ideas the Victorians would have had years ago. Big projects, big buildings, big this, big that. I don't see them in the plans at the moment. Now, maybe they will come about as the plans develop. But I think if Penarth, and I said I'm being very parochial tonight, if Penarth is to look back over the decades, over the centuries, we need to have some really fine ideas that will stand out and mark out 2025 or 2030, whatever it's going to be, as years in which the town forged ahead. With something like 25,000 people in the town now, it's many, many years since anything new was developed in the town. We've lost quite a lot, but we haven't really gained an awful lot. And so I think, Chairman, in summing up, and I'm sure you want me to sum up, yes, the plan is good. Yes, some good ideas, but I would look for more aspirational ideas at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ernest. Phil and Nicola, I think there's some really interesting issues raised there by Councillor Ernest that won't just apply to Penarth. So there's an issue around sustainability and how developments will be sustained going forward. There's also an issue around the aspirational aspect of the plans. And I suppose it would be really helpful for us as a committee to understand what support has been available to local people to ensure that these plans are as ambitious as possible. And I think the third issue I picked out of that was around those issues which may be key in terms of placemaking plans, but fall outside the immediate scope, thinking about things like trains, for example. So I don't know if which of you wants to pick up those issues, and then I'll bring Councillor William in because hopefully he's rejoined us.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'll probably pick up the sustainability one. It's always there in the background, and it's a kind of age-old problem that you see across the country really around. You get funding to invest in regeneration schemes, and then there's no funding to maintain them. And I think that's going to be forming part of the business case that gets submitted and go forward, because nothing without ongoing funding will get supported. In the current financial climate, I don't even think that's an option. So that's possibly why some of the schemes are. I mean, I suppose they're kind of deliverable. We don't really have the Victorian money that they had to do some of the fantastic schemes, but certainly things like the Headland Link have come up in discussion. I know at the town council, and I think for now what we're doing is trying to put in schemes that are kind of deliverable in the sort of short to medium term. But I think that's the beauty of the schemes being a kind of evolving live document, really. It's a way of working more than anything. But I'll hand over to Nicola now just to maybe touch on the other points.
Thank you. I was just going to follow up on that aspirational aspect, really. Chair, you asked about what support local people have had in order to develop their ideas. Well, two things really is that we really tried with the consultation work to not just not make it just a wish list initially, although we did ask people what they loved about their towns and what they would like to see developed as part of those early conversations that were just sort of more off the cuff. And in terms of aspirations that came from people, they've largely been reflected in the plans. In terms of encouraging that aspiration, we certainly did some of that work when we focused in on some of those ideas. So instead of just asking people what they loved and off the cuff what they would like to see, we did invite people to attend some very specific workshops where we I
think we've just lost Nicola.
Yeah, Chair, I think for some reason the screen is frozen. Nicola, if you can hear us, I don't know if you want to rejoin the meeting or retry coming back on by pressing the request to speak button.
Chair, if you don't mind me coming in really quickly just to fill in some of the gaps. I think what Nicola was getting to, the point she was getting to, was that obviously the placemaking plans are really important, and Phil has mentioned this as well. They are live documents. In many ways, we have given a lot of support to both town councils and communities to develop their ideas and to build those ideas into the plans. But that does not stop the plans from evolving over time if there are new ideas or new funding streams or major projects that come through. And what it does do is when major projects are developed, and if we take the Headland Link as a good example, were there to be funding available for that and it to progress, it would, if it did progress, it would have to progress in accordance with what the placemaking plan is saying around how we engage with residents, how that, for example, Headland Link would fit in with some of our green space that already exists and some of our access points and some of our sustainable transport. So, albeit I completely understand Councillor Ernest mentioning that there doesn't seem to be big projects within the Penarth plan, for example, it does identify key areas and it doesn't prevent big ideas from coming forward if there is funding for those in the future. Coming to really quickly to the other point that was raised about transport and transport links, it's worth noting that when the plans were developed, they were developed in conjunction with colleagues from our transport section, but also having conversations with Transport for Wales and others. And so we do rely on feedback from them to build those issues into the plans. Where we can, we have. If there is a little bit of a lack of clarity, then obviously we have to be slightly more open or vague, if you like, in the plan itself. But that doesn't prevent us from firming the plans up in those areas in the future. We keep saying they are living documents, and as such, those plans are open to amending very easily and updating. And in reality, I come back to the point I made around major projects. As time goes forward and as some of those major projects may come forward through Transport for Wales or from Cardiff Capital Region or from other areas where funding exists, we would hope that those projects would be developed with a very keen eye on the placemaking plans themselves and taking account of placemaking principles. And I think that's probably the best we can say in those particular cases.
Thank you, Marcus. That's really, really helpful additional information. Councillor Ernest, do you want to come back?
Chairman, thank you very much. I'm grateful.
If I may ask you, because I'm conscious of this need to speak. Thank you.
I'm grateful to all three officers for what they've said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ernest. Councillor William, I hope you're back with us and we can hear you.
Hopefully, can you hear me, Chair?
Please go ahead.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss this exciting initiative tonight. And also, having thanked the officers, I'd like to thank Councillor Ernest as well, because his question was quite universal, as you said, and it did apply to a lot of things. Although I might just say, I think one of the reasons the Victorians had so many good plans and were able to implement them was they were not only loaded, they also were able to well, they weren't very famous for paying their staff very well, were they? So thankfully, with minimum wages and so on, we're not in that position. But my questions on a serious note are to do with, firstly, why, when it comes to Barry, didn't the Barry Town Council corporate plan get incorporated? Also, I'd like to know who's responsible for the actual delivery of the plan. And finally, this board that's supposed to be managing this, who's on it and who appointed them? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor William. Phil.
Okay. So the corporate plan, I don't think it's a case of either sort of integrating the corporate plan or not really. I suppose the placemaking plan is a standalone document that's been signed off by both councils. And the delivery of the plan it doesn't sit within kind of one council's responsibility. It's certainly not it's the responsibility of, because I think what we're seeing in other areas is actually there's private land, there's land that actually voluntary sector groups can lead on projects on green space that could be managed by the community. So I think in terms of bidding for money and evolving the documents themselves, yes, it is the Vale Council's responsibility to lead on that, but actually we would not do that without the town council's mutual sign-off. So it's been a bit of a juggling act. We've been trying to coordinate the cabinet and the full councils of meetings in other areas to make sure that the plans are signed off. So on the board, the overarching place board, that we've got different structures and nobody sits on the same board. So the overarching place board, chaired by the leader, and we'll have several members of the senior leadership team on it. The town board's chaired by the deputy leader and cabinet member for sustainable places, and we are hoping to have both an elected member and a senior official from each of the town councils on those boards as well. So they are responsible for owning the plans, owning the business cases, overseeing the work of the project teams that might be created beneath them, and reporting to cabinet and the overarching place board. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Phil. Can I ask a follow-up question to Councillor Williams' question? So in terms of membership, obviously you've talked about town council ward members being involved, which is great. But what about Vale of Glamorgan councillors who might bring a different perspective and who are not town councillors? Are they involved? And if not, why not?
Yeah, I mean, they're as involved as I guess they want to be. I know that several members of this committee have been very involved in the placemaking plans and may want to talk about their roles there. I think what we've always strived to do in the past is, for example, the rural board that we had, we keep members updated where there's developments happening at the board that affect their wards. And my hope is actually that, you know, members become kind of advocates for the placemaking plan and get involved in, you know, the design of it. We're obviously at the early stage of it. And I think what we're seeing is actually that there's probably scope to do some deep dive work within very small locations within town centres that you basically can integrate then at a later stage into the plan. So we might have a very high level view of, you know, the island, the town centre, the NAP at the moment, for taking Barry, for example. But actually, we've had some really good buy-in from some of the businesses and some of the local people in those areas who might want to further develop the projects there. I don't want it to sound like a fob-off answer, but I guess that local members can be involved. We've held events, people have been invited to them. Some people have come, some people haven't, but we're always open to members getting involved and happy to meet them.
Great. So an open invitation. Thank you, Phil. Councillor Williams, did you want to come back in briefly on that, and then I'll bring Councillor Hooper in?
Thank you, and I will be brief. Firstly, I do welcome the open invitation. I think Phil can expect an email from me soon. I am very interested in this. Finally, though, the point is that Barry Town Council haven't signed this off, and I think they're fairly annoyed about the fact that, you know, the stuff hasn't been incorporated. They went to great trouble to write a corporate plan, so I think we might need to be cognizant of that.
Yes, yeah, and Barry is. Oh, sorry.
Just before you answer that, can I just say I think it's important that we don't talk about another council's position. So can we just note that concern and deal with that outside of this meeting? I don't want to be in a position where we're stepping on the town council's toes, if that's okay, Councillor William and Phil. So can I suggest that's picked up outside of this scrutiny committee?
Okay.
Thank you.
I think when Nicola was saying earlier that the 3 plans have been signed off by the council, so apologies if that caused any confusion, and Barry is ongoing, but the approach is the same for all 4.
Yeah, and I think the report makes that clear, so thank you. Councillor Hooper, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Phil and Nicola. I think I've got 5 questions if I can. The first one, I noticed in the detail, Nicola talked about them disengaged communities that they were struggling with. And I'm really interested in how we translate the words that are in this type of document to the residents who use our towns every day. And I think that's the challenge is in conceptual stuff and putting it back into reality. So I'll be interested just in digging into that a bit more. We talked about consultants, as this is a scrutiny committee. I'd like to know a bit more about that, how the consultants were chosen, how much of the project costs have been taken by those consultants, and where those consultants are based, please. And just referring to, and I think this is clear, that the opportunity areas, there is no money that's guaranteed for any of these schemes at the moment, just so that people who may be watching this or hear about these schemes through a press release actually understand that these things aren't guaranteed, and we need to be aware of that, because people have suffered from broken promises before. So let's make sure we're really honest. So I'd just be interested in how we're taking that forward. The next one's a really specific one. I noticed that we had the Barry Island station on as the picture that came up for the Barry Place plan. And I'm just interested, I noticed there's currently a war museum in Barry Island Station. It didn't look like there was a war museum in the graphic that was put up there. And I'm just wondering whether or not we've consulted with the people from the war museum. And the last one is linked to, I was a member of Governance and Audit Committee, and we are really interested in how this council engages with other bodies. And it's very difficult to be able to, for residents to find out where decisions are made. So we talked about the Barry Town Board earlier. My understanding is that there are no formal minutes from that town board. Can you confirm whether that's the case? And whether this plethora of other governance arrangements have been put in place will have proper minute arrangements so that residents can see what's going on, what was said, where there's disagreements or not, because that comes at the heart of what we need to do as a scrutiny committee, and that's what councillors need to do. So I wonder if you could deal with those questions, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. That's a lot of questions. Phil, Nicola, I hope you've captured them. I don't know who wants to come in first. Thank you, Nicola.
Hi, thanks, Chair, and sorry, my connection dropped out earlier. I'll try and answer them, but also be brief to get through them. So first of all, just to note your comment regarding our hard-to-reach audiences and the language that we've used in the plans. Firstly, just to say that the language that we've used during consultation work hasn't been the plans in their entirety. So we have made them more palatable, more bite-sized, focusing on very specific questions and gathering that information. And then the plans are quite long and they're quite comprehensive, and to some extent they need to be written in a particular way. But also there is plans to create easy reader versions that are both just sort of quicker to digest, but also using different language so that it's appropriate for different cohorts of our communities. So hopefully that briefly answers the first question. I'll jump onto the second question, then I'm going to hand over to Phil. Just with regards to the consultants, so the funding for the consultants was specifically given by Welsh Government and could only be used for that external use. And any development cost in creating the plan, such as piloting initial ideas. Each of the consultants was selected with a selection of Vale Council officers and the town councils together. A brief was put out on Sell to Wales. It was a very open process. We received bids from across the UK, and we scored them against a set of published criteria. And chose them based on their experience, their ability to deliver, but also their understanding of each of the specific towns. Yeah, hopefully that answers that question. I'll pass over to Phil to answer the next one. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicola. There was one other supplementary on that one, wasn't there, around where the consultants were from? So I might come back to you on that one, just so that I don't get it wrong. The one around kind of false promises and building up expectations, absolutely take a point on that. And I think that's why being out in the communities has been quite helpful, because you end up having that conversation with residents saying, what are your priorities? What are your needs as well in this area? And you go like, it's great if you want a swimming pool or you think we need a new Lido or whatever. And you go, where does that weigh up in the mix of other priorities emerging on these, maps that are all in front of you? So I think it's been interesting having a conversation, now as well, where you're able to talk to things like car parking, for example. People saying, I want a better car park, I want a better, surface on the car park. And you're like, well, how do we, or I want an event space. You go, how do we make that happen? So you end up having a conversation with the group or the resident or the business about how could that actually happen? And you're saying, well, there are no promises here for this funding. But I think it also boils down to how the projects are prioritised, both in terms of the need, the funding availability, the deliverability of those projects as well. So I think I'll nip back to Nicola on the last supplementary and maybe point 4 as well.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. With regards to where the consultants are from, they're actually from right across we've had consultants from England, Wales and Ireland. We based the choice of the consultants, as I've said, based on their experience and their empathy with the particular towns and the type of places they'd worked in before. So we didn't specify that they had to be Welsh specific or outside of Wales, but we ended up with just a real mix, and we're able to learn from each of them. With regards to the question about the station and the museum, yes, apologies. We appreciate that image has been used before and raised a similar question. This is from a draft piece of work that we were doing, which in no means did not intend to omit the museum, and that's certainly not the intention of the plan. So when the plan is published, and if we use a similar image, we'll make sure that it's clearly noted that the museum is still included. Yes, we have had some very direct conversations with the museum. They've both come to consultations. They've come to events that we've held to specifically talk about particular places. And we've also discussed with them that whilst the community sees the museum or more broadly sees the heritage and history of Barry as an asset, and that whilst they do value the museum, broadly there hasn't been any specific aspiration to develop the museum. So it's in the plan as in it's noted as an asset. It's not noted in the current draft plan as aspirational for development, and that's just based on the not the lack of interest, but the amount, I guess. Okay, thanks. I'm just going to pass back to Phil for the question on the board.
Okay. Oh, Chair, you've gone. I can't hear you. Your voice is. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Nicola. Yeah, and I think, I suppose the focus for the museum is been about making sure that they've got security at tenure as well, because what they do there is fantastic, and I know that they've got a good working relationship with Transport for Wales. So I think our initial focus has been trying to support them to make sure that they've got that kind of security at tenure, and possibly look at some grant funding around the actual building itself. So really, that'll definitely carry on. Councillor, your point about the Barry partnership, the new board for the independent board established by the UK government funding. That board has minutes and notes of meetings that are available online, and I'll share that link with the members. And we're in the process of transferring that over to the barry.cymru website, which is linked to the previous placemaking work that's been undertaken by Maria Velios. So that one is in development at the moment, and there's a comms piece that's going to be happening over the late summer with the residents of the town. And in terms of governance, I think it might be also helpful if I share the details of each of the groups that are being established and their specific remits as well. So I'll share that with the members. And we're in the process of writing the terms of reference for those groups at the moment. But I think it's fair to say that if you want those places to be a space for open discussion as well, so that that scenarios and projects are discussed, issues are discussed, and people to be able to discuss ideas. And I certainly think that this is linked to the Barry board, the town board linked to the placemaking plan. And I think it's important that we capture that, so that and more importantly that we share the progress of the plan with residents, because the hope is that this plan's going to be here for years and years and years and years. So it's not something that necessarily needs to be absolutely minuted. I think when it comes to those sort of discussions within the town board level.
Thank you, Phil. Councillor Champion, please, and thank you for your patience.
Sorry, Chair, can I come back in? Mia, there's please.
Councillor, I'm really conscious of time, and other people are still waiting.
But this is a scrutiny committee, Chair. This is a scrutiny committee.
Hang on. I'm still speaking. So I'm going to say yes
to you.
And just ask you if you be brief. Thank you.
Thank you. I asked a question about, so we've got two chunks of money, 350 grand in 24-25 and 400,000 in 25-26. I asked whether or not, what percentage the consultancy took of that. It'd be useful to get that. It'd also be useful to find out how much money was spent on consultancy. If it's something that needs to be in part 2, I'd like to know it in part 2, but I'd like to know the answers to those questions. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. I'm not sure if that's Phil or Marcus that are going to come back in on that. And if it's part 2.
I'll be brief. Yeah, no, I think we can give the actual detail. None of that money that I talked about in that slide has been spent on the consultancy for that. That is money to be invested in the town centres. It was a separate grant scheme that the Welsh Government run across Wales to issue grants of up to £50,000 per town to cover the costs of both that development of the plan, the kind of design, architects, etc., multidisciplinary teams, but also to fund pilot projects as well. So there have been pilot projects in the different towns as well, just to test the use of some of the money. So we can share that, possibly the global figure rather than the individual consultants' amounts, but we can certainly say what grants were accessed and how that money was spent. It's all shareable as far as I can see.
Thank you very much, Phil. And now Councillor Champion, and as I say, thank you for your patience.
Hi, thank you. The sort of overriding board, which is going to have the leader and various other luminaries from the Vale Council. I just wonder whether in the sort of all the other boards have sort of different makeup. Should there be perhaps an urban designer from a Cardiff practice or something who would actually, because this is all quite often about urban design, and not necessarily from one of the consultants that we've already had, but an urban designer who can just speak to the various members of that board. I'd like to say how brilliant the whole process was in Cowbridge. The consultants presented to the town council. They were very open and receptive. And although I think the lead consultant was from Manchester, there's someone, the transport consultant, I think, was from Cardiff, possibly. Yeah, in Cowbridge, all of the sites are really sort of Vale Council owned, or spaces that are easily dealt with without being third party. Now, obviously, that does mean that things can progress without. But I think maybe in the future, there might be areas of the town that aren't part of the estate, as it were, that we could perhaps look at. I think that's really all the things I need to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Nicola and Phil, I don't know if either of you would like to respond to those comments. Thank you.
I'm not sure if we've lost Nicola, actually. I think we might have. Just on that point around, yeah, thank you, Councillor Champion, and thank you for, you're obviously really involved in this plan, so thank you so much. On that point around the designer, absolutely, I think when it gets to that sort of project stage, you've got, I think in Cambridge, you've got 5 action areas, and I think within it, for example, Bearfield at the moment is now looking, having done all the consultation with the young people around the solutions within Bearfield. And I think that's the point where you would bring in them on a project by project basis, case by case basis.
Board above.
Oh, the board above. Yeah, I mean, the board above is really there to. It's really there to empower those town boards to get on and deliver. That board above will be taking a much broader strategic oversight and will be signing off kind of full business cases and making recommendations to cabinet. So what the idea is that those town level boards are the ones that get on and own the plans and deliver. And the board above will see all of those any detailed design. And also, in some cases, project management teams and multidisciplinary teams might present final schemes or schemes in development to that board for information. Your point about the second point was around. Bear with me. Private land, yes, and that's something I wasn't expecting, because I think one thing we've done, taken on board what people have said, and then every town has had it kind of presented back to them, saying, this is what we think you're saying, this is what we think the data's saying. Come and tell us if we think we've misheard you or we've interpreted it incorrectly. And we had approaches from several private landowners after that, which I necessarily wasn't expecting, to say, well, we've got this bit of land here, could we look at doing something like that, and would it fit in, would it complement your scheme? We've had meetings with charitable trusts as well, who look after land because they've realised that actually it potentially has an impact on elsewhere. So I was really hopeful after that can happen elsewhere. So so far so good on that front. It has triggered that sort of discussion for further developments that could be included in future versions of the plan.
Thank you, Phil. Gina Doyle, please. Are you there, Gina? You need to press the large button towards the bottom of your screen. It looks like a person speaking. Yeah. There you go. We're with you.
I've got it. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I was wondering, how did you actually find out what people would like to happen in their town? Did you send letters? Did you do a survey? Did you stop people in the street? How did it happen in the first place, and how did you find out?
It's a great question. Thank you. I'm guessing Nicola, if she's with us, yes. Do you want to pick that up, Nicola? Thank you.
Hi, I am here, but my camera's gone off, so hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we did all of those things, actually. We didn't necessarily write to every single household, but in some instances we did put flyers through people's doors inviting them to come and speak to us at particular events or workshops, or just to let them know that we would be at events that were already happening. We use social media to reach people, again, to let them know where we would be or invite them in for comment. We held some surveys, which were both online, but also printed and distributed in places where people could complete them on paper. So they were distributed in community centres, doctor surgeries, shops, supermarkets, and so forth. We had stalls outside of supermarkets, leisure centres, as I said, doctor surgeries. We went to people's own meetings, if they were community groups or organisations, business forums, and so forth. So, yeah, we had a really sort of, we tried to have a really comprehensive approach to the engagement, where we looked at both how people like to engage. So assuming that not everybody wants to engage online, and likewise not everybody wants to engage in person. So we tried to make sure that there was a real mix in every town. And we also tried to vary the style in which we engaged with people. So sometimes we would just catch them walking into the supermarket. Other times they were invited to participate in a much more structured workshop, or listen to presentations and so forth. And then as part of that plan, we also looked at how we might reach people that might have different needs as well, and paired with organisations and some of our colleagues to reach some of those people. In some of those cases, that would have included knocking on their doors, working with the Older 50s Forum and so forth. So yeah, it was It was very varied and hopefully comprehensive.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, Gina. Councillor William and Councillor Ernest, I can see you want to come back in. I want to draw this agenda item to a close because I'm conscious we've got other items on the agenda. So I am going to bring you back in, but can I ask you to be very brief, please? And then I'll come to the Cabinet member who I can see is waiting.
Yes, of course, Chair. I'm extremely brief, but Councillor Williams before me.
He is indeed. Councillor William, please. Councillor William, are you with us?
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Great. Just a clarification question. I'll be very, very brief. So there are two things, as I understand it. You've got your town board and the Barry Partnership. The Barry Partnership was originally called a town board, which is why I'm getting a bit confused. So am I right to say there are two different boards in existence? And are they doing the same thing? And if so, why have we got two? Just clarification, really. Thanks.
I'm sure that's an easy one, Nicola. Oh, Phil, away you go.
That's good. Barry Partnership with me. Yeah, I mean, it's always been called the Barry Partnership. Obviously, the programme went through an evolution and a name change at UK government level, but we didn't change the name of the partnership deliberately. The partnership is well aware of the placemaking plan and has received presentations around it. And obviously, one of the themes within the plan is within the UK government priorities is around town centres. There's another one around safety and security. So, like I said, there may be things within that plan they see a benefit in funding, whether it's grants for shop fronts or improvements to public realm or improvements to sort of safety measures that are in the plan that would benefit it. So it is an independent partnership, and it is doing a different thing. It's £2 million a year over 10 years, so it's £5 million of revenue, £15 million of capital, and obviously a lot of the things we want to do in the placemaking plan are actually revenue. I think they're not the capital in the placemaking plan, whereas I think the focus early on with the Barry Partnership is on revenue. But the two share members, and there'll be a lot of cross-pollination and working.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks for the clarification.
Councillor Ernest.
Sorry,
Sorry,
really quickly.
Ernest.
I'm sorry to come in, Councillor Ernest. It was just to add to what Phil said that the other key difference is that obviously, and Phil has alluded to this, but it is that the Plan for Neighbourhoods, which we understand might change its name again shortly, is actually a UK government scheme and funded by UK government, and has specific requirements about membership of its of the partnership that, if you like, governs that. The town boards and the process of the placemaking plans was actually a Welsh government set up process, and the town boards themselves are largely council internal, although do include colleagues from the town councils themselves as well. So although they are very similar, and as Phil says, they will be cross-pollination, they do different things.
Thank you, Marcus. So it's good to know that all levels of government are wanting to invest in us here in the Vale. Thank you. Councillor Ernest, please, final comment.
Yes, Chairman. Chairman, the reason I wanted to come back in, because I was conscious that you very quickly picked up on a point a good 15 minutes or so ago about those Vale of Glamorgan councillors who are not town councillors. And my good friend, Councillor William, I think, alluded to this as well. Now, I'm not a town councillor in Penarth. I used to be, but haven't been for some while. And the only contact I've actually had with the team was a meeting getting on for 2 years ago in a rather cold and damp cemetery chapel in Penarth for an hour or so. And I also recall attended one meeting as well in, I think it was up at the top end of Penarth in the reconditioned church up there. I've had no contact at all with the town council. I've seen nothing of the reports from the town council. I've had no connection with the consultants. So I'm one of those Vale councillors that covers part of the town's centre area, and doubtless like other Vale councillors, are not necessarily represented on the town council or indeed the boards as things stand. And I think that's a fundamental issue, Chairman. I think some of it's been overlooked. We've not been brought to the fore as we should have been. And I want to register my strong disapproval of that. And I'm happy to endorse what I think you were saying, and also Councillor William on this occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. One of the things I'm going to capture from our discussion today, there are a number of bits of information that I think would be very useful for committee members to have. And I'm going to suggest that one of those is that it will be helpful for us to understand the opportunities for ongoing councillor engagement. But can I give officers an opportunity to respond to that concern at this stage, please? And then, as I say, we will close with the cabinet member and I'll sum up. I don't know who wants to take that issue. Thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a tricky one because obviously there's a lot of councillors. It's a very small team working on it. So what our hope was that we've held events across various, buildings, like Nicola was saying, supermarkets, pubs, the pier, other kind of sort of specific kind of drop-in events. And I think we've had a lot of councillors come to those. So a lot of town and ward member councillors have come to those. So I think when I've been talking about the councillors here, I'm talking about those that are actually leading some of the questioning and development of the questions that we're going to ask the community. I know Councillor Norman O'Lantern was really did a lot of work ahead of the point at which we appointed the consultant. So I think I talked before at Scrutiny where I said, members can get involved as much as they want or as little as they want. So I didn't want the committee to feel that we didn't have ward members attend those meetings. We had a lot of ward members come to those meetings, but obviously more than happy to have one-to-ones with members now that the plan is approved in some time.
Thank you, Phil. And I think it's been helpful that it's been made clear to us that these are very much living documents. So clearly there will be opportunities for ongoing participation. And I'm going to bring in the cabinet member, Councillor Bronwyn Brooks, next, and then I'm going to sum up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. It's been interesting listening to the feedback here this evening and about that discussion, and really useful points have been raised. I think the placemaking gives us this really, really unique opportunity to really engage with our communities, and for the community to act, or the towns to actually be saying to us, this is what we would like. It's a real mix of people. It is the town council, it's the Vale, it's organisations, it's members of the public, it's it's a real mix, businesses. So it gives us that real unique opportunity to try and deliver to the best that we can, and it's been really clear. It's been very, very clear right the way through that it won't be delivered by just one organisation. Obviously, it's the Vale that's actually leading on the documents and the placemaking documents, but actually it's about delivery in conjunction with other people. It'll be private businesses, it'll be the town councils, who, as a majority, have actually embraced this. And I was a little bit surprised by, I must admit, by Councillor William comment about the corporate plan. It's still in draft form, the Barry one. That is very much in draft form, and there's ongoing discussions, and all town councillors are actually invited to the sessions that have been held, and there's going to be more sessions, so we're nowhere near the end of that road yet. And so obviously, if he wants to come along and take part within that, it would be great to see him there. So I think it's been a good start. I think we've officially launched the Cowbridge one, and I attended along as cabinet member, and it was great to see the enthusiasm in the room and the way there were local businesses there and the town council and members of the public, and how everybody embraced it, and then really excited to be able to try and work some of those, what they picked out as key opportunities. And I think that's really important. So you try and hone in a little bit then. And obviously then we got the official launch then of Penarth and Llantwit to come as well. The Barry one is obviously a lot more complex. It's a large town. It's actually such a diverse town. We haven't even got one high street. We've got several high streets. So there's a lot more work to go into that one before we officially launch that out. There's been lots and lots of events already held. And, you know, I'm really, really hoping that we can launch the Barry one towards the end of the year in autumn. And I really look forward to that. So, and it's really good. So if everybody sees any of the events around, please take part. Please come along to the meetings. It would be really great for everybody's input. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and thank you all committee members for engaging in such a lively discussion about this. I think the time that we spent on this has been well spent, and it shows the level of interest that there is in this work. In terms of feedback, I've noted that there's some information that committee would like from officers. So this isn't a recommendation, this is a request, please. Can we have a copy of the presentation? Can we have details of board membership, links to the notes from Barry Placemaking Board meetings, information about the consultancy budget, and also it would be helpful if you could proactively inform elected members about opportunities for ongoing engagement. So if we can capture those, that would be really helpful. Thank you. In terms of comments for consideration by Cabinet and the Place Boards, which is one of the recommendations before us, I'm not sure we've got any comments to go back to Cabinet. And I think the comments we've got for the Place Boards are by and large to do with issues that we've already had confirmation are happening, but I think we want to lend our voice to those approaches. So my notes say that we want to ensure that the boards ensure that sustainability is built into business plans. We recognise the need to ensure plans can be delivered and are not just wish lists, but we would also encourage boards to continue to be ambitious and aspirational for the towns that they're considering. And we also want to ensure that the plans are accessible to all cohorts of communities. So, for example, easy read versions and different languages. And we've already had confirmation that that's the intended approach, but I think committee can just add its support for those actions. Have I missed anything, committee? Otherwise, I'll just take us through the formal recommendations. No? Good. So recommendation that Scrutiny Committee note the contents of the report and the placemaking plans. I move that recommendation. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
Second, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ernest. That Scrutiny Committee provide comments for consideration by Cabinet and the Place Boards. I've already summarised those. And that Scrutiny Committee receive a future report on the placemaking plan for Barry. Again, I move that recommendation, and can I have a seconder for that, please? I think Councillor Drake, you were trying to come in. Yeah, Councillor Drake.
I will second that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all. Thank you very much, Nicola, Phil and Marcus. We really appreciate you giving us your time this evening. As I've already said, I hope that you'll see from the time that we spent on this issue how interested we are in the really important work that you're doing. And please feel free to stay for the rest of the meeting or leave and enjoy your evening. Thank you. And now we move on to agenda item 5, which is Project Zero update. This report is before us this evening to advise members on the progress being made in responding to the climate emergency, including work that's being done through the Public Services Board. And we're joined by Susanna McWilliam and Helen Moses, who will take us through the report. I'm not sure who's going to go first, but over to you, please. Hello, Susanna.
Thanks, Chair. So, yeah, just to reiterate, it'll be myself today, and Marcus Goldsworthy is here as well to take any questions that come afterwards. So if we're happy to share the slides, I've just got a few slides to run through the highlights. Thank you. the highlights of the report itself. So this evening I'll be presenting the Project Zero biannual report for the 6-month period, October 24 to March 25. So next slide, please. Over the next few slides, I'm going to present some report highlights. So I'll take you through some of the highlights of the activities in the same time period. We'll look briefly at some of the resources and also the work of the Public Services Board. There will be appendices in the report, and I'm happy to take questions on these. Some of the questions I may need to take back to other colleagues. So on to the next slide, please. Just a reminder that Project Zero encompasses work across the whole council to tackle the climate and nature emergency and work towards our target as an organisation, which is to be net zero by 2030. And of course, our work around biodiversity and nature. But also it supports our work supporting the Vale as a whole as part of the Wales-wide target of reaching net zero by 2050 and those broader nature and biodiversity commitments also. So on to the next slide. Taking the challenges from our climate change challenge plan in 3 sections. Firstly, challenges 1 to 4 are on demonstrating strong leadership. And some of the highlights in the reports include volunteering experiences and opportunities on our green spaces. There have been 15 different volunteer groups working on the Restore the Thaw project, building their skills while carrying out conservation activities, including dormouse box installations, meadow management, and tree planting. A biodiversity e-learning module has been launched that was developed by Cynnal Cymru, funded by the Shared Prosperity Fund, and this is accessible to staff, schools, and elected members. So this was our first training that we opened up to PSB members, and we've had some uptake from our partners there. We've also brought in external expertise, including consultancy, to undertake energy audits and feasibility studies. And this unlocked an Ystadau Cymru grant, which funded upgrades at 4 community centres, including new internal LED lighting at Margaret Alexander and Barry Island, and LED lighting and solar arrays at Highland Park and Lower Penarth centres. Through the FPF funding, there's been funding for business decarbonisation, and this came to an end during this period, but overall businesses benefited and saved 96 tonnes of CO2 emissions through various different initiatives, and the PLACE team led that work. Moving on to the next slide, please. The next grouping of challenges, which is number 5 to number 12, focuses on fulfilling our responsibility to current and future generations. And here some highlights from the reports include the tree strategy, which has been adopted now by the council and is fully operational. That includes a commitment to plant a minimum of 1,500 trees annually, and to work towards a net increase in canopy cover in urban areas on council-owned land by 7.5% by 2039. Big Fresh has joined the steering group for the Welsh Government-funded Welsh Veg in Schools project, and they've successfully participated in its first year using Welsh organic vegetables in school meals across 10 Vale schools. Active travel enhancements include enhanced pedestrian routes, new off-street cycle paths in East Barry, and 80 new bike and scooter parking spaces installed at schools and also on on-street locations. And in neighbourhood services, there was preparation in this period for the soft plastics collection pilot. That went live in April 2025, and providing a weekly collection for around 16,000 households in Penarth and the surrounding areas. And as an update since this report, by June 2025, 20 tonnes of soft plastic had been collected, which was well ahead of the forecasted target. But moving on to the next slide, our final group of challenges is on the theme of make a difference now. These are focused on our internal approaches, and these are generally the things that impact our own organisational carbon footprint. So examples from the report include monetary and carbon savings for the residents in our Severn Avenue Council housing, thanks to carbon reduction measures undertaken by the housing team. In the first 10 months, the solar panels and batteries installed saved an estimated 6.6 tonnes of carbon and generated over 29,000 kilowatts of solar power. That collectively saved residents a total of over £5,000 on their electricity bill, and the average saving per flat was around £180. In terms of water use, since December 24, we've achieved a 55% reduction in the average cubic meterage of water lost a day due to leaks. That was through drawing attention to unusual water usage patterns across many of our buildings and our allotments. And then finally, as part of our vehicle replacement scheme, 2 EV recycling vehicles have been purchased and delivered, and the vehicle rollout has been positive. So moving on to the next slide, please. Looking at the progress right across the 18 challenges, there are 80 underlying steps reported in Appendix A. And Project Zero is a phased programme, so we aren't necessarily expecting to see progress against all 80 steps on a 6-monthly period. So during this period, 57 of the 80 steps were on track. For 20 steps, the progress was slower than expected. And for 3 steps, there has not been any progress, as summed up on the slide. Moving on to the next slide, please. Section 2.6 in the report looks at the resources used for moving Project Zero forward. So much of the work reflected in this report is resourced within existing capacity and supported by established internal budgets. Section 106 money has also been used to undertake a number of biodiversity, active travel and transport schemes as highlighted in the appendix. External annual funding pots, including from the Welsh Government, also support the work. So, for example, for the schools building programme, for transport and for council housing. And I've mentioned previously the grants from the Welsh Government Energy Service that helped fund new electric vehicles, including the 2 recycling vehicles. In addition, during the period, the Shared Prosperity Fund has helped in a number of ways, including the grants to community groups and businesses to put decarbonisation measures in place. So moving on to the last slide, finally, the Public Services Board Asset Management and Climate Emergency Group meets quarterly and brings together all PSB partners. So work in this period included the launch of the Climate and Nature Emergency Charter, which strengthens the previous Climate Emergency Charter. So this new charter highlights the role of nature more strongly and lays out more clearly how partners will demonstrate progress. The PSB were also successful in their bid to the Shared Prosperity Fund for monies to commission a Vale PSB Climate Change Risk Assessment, and that's due to be delivered within this financial year. So this is going to help the partnership better understand climate risks within the context of the Vale and to identify ways that they can work together, both within the organisations and across organisations, to adapt to and to mitigate climate risks. So that's come to the end of the slides. That's a very brief overview of the contents of the report. I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Any questions or comments from committee members, please? Susanna, can I ask a question in relation to why there's been no progress on 3 of the steps? I can see in the appendices that one of the barriers appears to be funding. Can you just give us a bit more information on that, please?
Yep, certainly. I think on one of the previous slides I've put on those 3 areas. Marcus, you're with us, and I think some of those fall within your area. Are you happy to take that?
Yes, I can respond on the middle one, which is the review of producing supplementary planning guidance to support work on climate change. And actually possibly on the one on the top, which isn't actually the place area, but relates to it. So in terms of the supplementary planning guidance to work on climate change, although some work has gone on behind the scenes, and members may recall we have commissioned, as part of the review of the LDP, we commissioned some work around how far we could go in terms of pushing developers to integrate sustainability into building and new buildings going forward. Unfortunately, some of that work has now been delayed and hasn't happened because we're waiting for the LDP and to progress The LDP has been unfortunately pushed back slightly, about 6 months, by virtue of some of the work that came out of the housing sites that were allocated and the need to look at alternative sites due to the deliverability of those sites. And that has had a knock-on effect. It's actually had a knock-on effect on that particular part of it, and in terms of the development of the green infrastructure plan, because that will be an integral part of the LDP, and the development of supplementary planning guidance will flow from the development of the LDP. So unfortunately, that has knocked that bit of work on. It's the same officers doing the same work, and they have to develop the LDP. We are under a very strict timeline for that. So unfortunately, some of this other guidance has had to take a back seat while the LDP goes forward. But I can assure members that it will come forward following the production of the LDP and the first draft deposit version of that. With regard to sustainable urban drainage guidance, that isn't the place. That isn't from the Place Department, but it is work that was undertaken or was being undertaken alongside the development of the new LDP to produce some supplementary planning guidance. I understand the drainage team are extremely busy, and that work essentially hasn't started yet. But I can assure members part of the reason for that is the delay in the LDP and the fact that we would want to take that through as part of the supporting information with the LDP. I understand it will be brought forward on that particular account. I don't know anything about the implementing flood risk management strategy, I'm afraid.
Thank you for taking us through those issues, Marcus. And perhaps we could pick up that last issue outside of committee if the information isn't available this evening. That's fine, thank you. Councillor Stannard, please.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Yeah, great. So thanks for the report. It's obviously really important work. I noticed that the use of Project Zero reserves is on hold at the moment. I think those were the words used. I was just wanting to be reassured, really, that the money has been held on to for Project Zero, regardless of the pressures on the council's budget, which I acknowledge, obviously.
Thank you, Councillor Stallard. Marcus, again, was there anything you wanted to add on this, or it's a question I can take back?
I think it's probably best we take that question back. As I understand it, the reserve remains there, Councillor Stallard, but as Susanna outlined in the presentation, there are currently no plans to use it for any future work. I think if we take that question back to the relevant to the Section 151 officer and the relevant teams, then perhaps we can get an answer for you.
Thank you very much for that. Is there anything from anyone else, please? Oh, Councillor Burnett, if there are no other committee members who are wanting to speak, please go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. It was only something that came to mind earlier today, and I don't know if anyone else saw on the BBC news site. They were talking about sustainable drainage, where rainwater is treated differently to foul sewerage. And I hadn't realised that Scotland and Wales have a policy on that. England doesn't. And that's where, when you see new developments, you see quite often the attenuation ponds, if there's availability. If people have a look at the new council housing that we built down by Hayes Road, what looks like a really lovely front garden with a nice pond and a little bridge over it, that's actually an attenuation pond. So our schools have them. Our schools have sustainable drainage. Our buildings do. We've also got, B bricks, Swift bricks, back boxes and everything else in all our schools. So there's actually a lot going on. So if you think about what happened, and it's quite interesting because I was doing a little bit of totting up. I think, if I'm not mistaken, only 4 of the elected members on tonight's committee actually took part in the votes on the motion to declare either a nature or a climate emergency. Back in 2019 for the climate, 2021 for nature emergency. So there has been a tremendous amount going on in the council, and in some ways the work that we're doing for ourselves is one thing, but the policies that we set, and this is sort of explains what we do when we take a motion to council for something that actually is important to us, and it changes the policy of the council. And as a result, we move forward. And all these steps then fall into place and they all happen. And we get to reports such as we've had today. So huge thanks to Susanna for pulling this together. But just wanted to sort of a little bit of reflection in how this all happened and hopefully where it will go to in the future. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And thank you so much, Susanna, for the report and for taking us through it. Councillor Perry, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, while I'm here in the environment, just a few points. We need to really start talking seriously about building waste and demolition. I think there's an article today about the amount of carbon caused by destruction of the Gaza Strip. But I mean, our neighbours, Cardiff Council, are just destroying anything building they can, rebuilding as if there is no climate emergency. So let's not copy Cardiff. Let's preserve the buildings we've got and make use of them, reuse. Yeah. So that's one thing I want to just make a note of. Transportation, bus passengers is down by 20% in 5 years. Active travel is going nowhere. There's a lack of investment. We're not making any progress at all. The money's dried up. There's money for airports, so we can subsidise the most wealthy amongst us going overseas, a high carbon footprint. But if you want to pedal down the road every day, no, you can't, because that's not moving. So the Welsh Government's completely got that wrong, wrong priorities. So we need more active travel. We've talked about the need to, reducing the need to travel. That needs to change. It's too late to reduce the need to travel. What we need to do is reduce private car ownership, because once you've got a car, you're going to use it. The buses all stop in the evening, and if you want to go to work on a Sunday morning, you can't because we're still not there. We need to change all this, and that means reducing the need to own a car. And then, of course, we've got the
forgive me for jumping in. I think that you raised some important points, but we're really here to scrutinise this report and the work that's being done here in the Vale, and we want obviously this to be as constructive a discussion as possible. So, is there anything that you want to say in response to this report and the work that's being done here in the Vale? And if I can respectfully ask you to refrain from criticising actions being taken in other local authorities, they're clearly not here. They're clearly not. Hang on, I'm speaking. Hang on, Councillor Perry, I'm speaking. They're clearly not here to be able to respond to those comments, and I think it's inappropriate for us to make them. So, as I say, if you could focus your comments on the report before us, please, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, but definitely with our new LDP, we need to go further than reducing the need to travel, because I might not need to travel somewhere, but I want to, and I will use my car, as we all will. I want the opportunity to not own a car. 56% of the emissions in a car come from its natural manufacture, so we need to reduce it. And then, of course, you've got all the car storage, whether you're in Barry or in the next local authority, who are just they're probably one of the worst in Wales. Let's put it on the table. Cardiff, sort your act out. So I'll leave that there.
Councillor Perry, I'm going to ask you again. This is the Vale Scrutiny. No, Councillor Perry, please let me speak. This is the Vale Scrutiny Committee. We're here to scrutinise the actions that are being taken here in the Vale. It's really not fair that we use this as an opportunity to criticise another local authority in public. So can I ask you again, please refrain from doing that.
I'll do it in a newspaper.
If there's good practice elsewhere that we want to highlight, that's fine, but I don't want us to be criticising other councils when they're not in a position to be able to respond to that. So can I just bring you back to this report, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm not going to say anything more on the report, because obviously time is short, and I will obviously write a few things in newspapers and give them no opportunity to reply. Thank you. Yeah, let's try and strengthen this. We're not going in the right direction. We're hardly moving.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. I'm not seeing any other comments from any other committee members. So, Susanna, thank you very much for providing us with such a comprehensive report, which really very clearly sets out the really good progress that's being made, as well as the very real challenges in some areas. So we appreciate the time that you've taken to do that. I will take us to the formal recommendations, and there are 8. The committee consider the progress detailed in the report. I'm summarising rather than reading them all. That committee note the funding available in reserves and the projects awarded funding to date. That committee consider the updates on the Public Services Board work that's being done. That committee consider the performance against the agreed Project Zero indicators for 24-25. That committee note the relevant performance measures for 25-26. That committee consider the progress against the carbon management plan. That committee refer this report and any comments to Cabinet to be considered. We can refer the report, but we don't have any comments. And that committee recommend to Cabinet that this report is distributed to all elected members, members of the Public Services Board, and all town and community councils for their information. Can I have a proposer for those recommendations, please? Councillor Champion?
Happy to propose.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Norman, are you happy to second?
Happy to second, Chair.
Many thanks, Councillor. Thank you very much, Susanna. You're very welcome to stay for our final agenda item, but equally, if you want to go and enjoy your evening, please do so. So finally, we move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 6, task and finish review activity. And just to remind the committee that all members were invited to suggest comments, topics, and we're now required to prioritise them and agree the size, composition, etc. of the first group. And what you've got before you is a summary of the proposals that have been made and officers' comments against them. And I think you're going to take us through it, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct, Chair. So thank you, Chair and Committee, and good evening. I'll be taking you through agenda item 6 regarding the task and finish review activity report, the purpose of which is to determine the task and finish review activity for this scrutiny committee going forward. The report requests members to consider items and topics of investigatory group work, which are basically the task and finish reviews for this new place scrutiny committee, and those are outlined in the report. Just to note, a range of suggestions were collated from members of the committee, both at its meeting held on the 20th of May 2025, when we discussed the forward work programme and related aspects. And further suggestions were sent to the Chair and myself after the meeting via email. Subsequently, the relevant directors and other officers have assessed the suggestions, and as a result, there are proposed 5 possible reviews to be considered for progression. These align closely to the current council priorities and corporate plan, Vale 2030, as well as being considered achievable within the 12-week task and finish review cycle. A paragraph 2.4 and appendix A to the report, the 5 suggestions are outlined, and just for members' information, these included what the council could do to help streets, high streets within the Vale of Glamorgan, such as bringing empty buildings back into use, making pavements an exciting environment, etc.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mark.
Yeah,
I was just going to say Councillor Wilson appeared on screen, so please go ahead, Mark.
No, thank you, Chair. The second suggestion looking at the results of the tenant satisfaction survey to help in developing the relevant actions with other stakeholders. Suggestion number 3 was a deeper look and focus into those areas that touched upon the remit of the committee, which are part of the Council's risk profile and register, where these could offer both added value and support for these, particularly those relevant areas which had been red rated and therefore were a highest risk to the Council on the register, such as climate change and the nature emergency, and in particular areas such as the financial pressures and current state of budgets limiting the Council's ability to invest in those key areas. Number 4 was a task and finish exercise about greater accessibility to beaches in the Vale of Glamorgan for people with disabilities, such as wheelchair users and others. The final one was suggestions concerning issues around refuse on local beaches and other linked and wider matters around local holiday resorts. Out of those, the following were proposals that could be looked at relatively straight away, whereas the others, for various reasons outlined in Appendix A of the report, would need to be looked at later on or at a later date. One example being the review on what the Council could do to help high streets within the Vale of Glamorgan for a number of reasons that would probably need to be looked at a later juncture. The more immediate task and finish items were the first one being the task and finish exercise around greater accessibility to beaches in the Vale of Glamorgan for people with disabilities and others. This was suggested by Kirsty Mitchell, one of our tenant reps, at the last meeting of the committee. We also have one where we have a task and finish suggested around the results of the tenant satisfaction survey. This is to help in developing the relevant actions with other stakeholders. This was initially suggested by housing officers following discussions very early on around topics for investigation. Also highlighted on Appendix A were those member suggestions that would need to be looked at by other scrutiny committees, and also some council officer ideas that could be considered at a later date or could help to form the basis for future reviews undertaken by members should they consider them appropriate. Also at paragraph 2.9 to the report, there is discussion on the composition of any proposed task and finish review group, with suggested number of members on that review being 6, but a lower, higher number could be accommodated based on the wishes of the Scrutiny Committee, with the chair decided by the Home Scrutiny Committee. Ideally, the task and finish review group should have representation from all political groups and from the relevant co-opted members. Paragraphs 2.11 to 213 also discuss the proposed timetable and framework of task and finish meetings, and those are outlined in the report. Subsequently, the recommendations for this report are for the Scrutiny Committee to prioritise and agree the order in which the task and finish reviews are to be undertaken, and that the size, composition and membership of those groups are agreed. That's really a very brief intro and overview of the report, and I'll now hand over to the Chair and the committee for their consideration. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for taking us through those. So committee, you've got before you what the suggested task and finish groups are. So we can work through all of those over a period of time. We're not saying that we're not going to do any of them. We just need to decide where we're going to start. And you've got officers' advice in front of you in terms of those suggested topics that could be begun imminently. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. I want to hear from all committee members, but I would definitely support a task and finish exercise that was suggested by Kirsty Mitchell around greater accessibility to beaches in the Vale of Glamorgan for people with disabilities. I think that's a really important, significant piece of work. I also think it might be a really good one for us to start with. It feels to me like something that could be done within the timescales, and it would help us all to learn how this is going to work. But as I say, I want to hear from others in terms of what their priorities are. Councillor Inichi Williams, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I back doing the same one that Kirsty has suggested as well. We always say how lucky we are to have such beautiful beaches in the Vale. But when we say we, that is naturally people who can't get onto the beaches. So I think this would be a really important piece of work so that we can all properly enjoy it and see what gaps there are for our constituents who can't get onto the beaches.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ernest, please.
Yes, Chairman. I was just thinking that on the report, the issue of refuse on local beaches and the wider matters around local holiday resorts, the latter part of that sentence maybe is a bit wider, but I would have thought refuse on local beaches is of considerable concern. And this council spent a lot of money trying to keep our beaches clean. I mean, Barry Island's one, for example, about Whitmore Bay, but also we've got, or certainly have had, volunteer groups at Penarth and I think probably other beaches. So I'd be happy possibly that item could be included, and happy to go along with the suggestion that other members have already made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Champion, please.
I'm just putting my hands up to be in that group about accessible beaches. I've done some access training in the past, so I'd like to be involved with that.
Oh, that's fantastic. Our first volunteer. Wonderful. Councillor Norman, please.
Thank you, Chair. Put my name down as well, please, for that one. I think, especially in Lantuck, we have a tremendous problem with that beach access. So I think anything we can do on that score will be very, very helpful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Councillor William, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I concur with Councillor Ernest. As you know, this was initially raised by myself at full council in response to Councillor Stallard's motion. And obviously you've now promoted this idea as well. I'd certainly like to volunteer to be a part of that, along with Councillor Ernest. We've both got a long history of being involved in this particular issue. Thank you.
Can I just check, Councillor William, are you talking about disability access or are you talking about refuse on beaches?
Refuse on beaches.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Kirsty Mitchell, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of people that want to get involved with accessibility. It means a lot to me, and I would really love to be part of the group. And thank you for everything.
Thank you for the suggestion, Kirsty. Councillor, so I've got Councillor William, Councillor Iannucci Williams, Councillor Ernest. You've all spoken. Can I check are those legacy hands? We'll come back to making sure we're absolutely clear what order we're going to do some of these things in. But let's make sure we hear from everybody first, if I may.
Chairman, I didn't realise we're actually taking nominations at the same time, but that my initial comments would indicate that I would like to be a part of the committee if possible. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think the way this is going to work is we're going to agree, perhaps we can agree the order in which we're going to tackle the first three task and finish groups. So priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. And when we agree priority 1, then we'll have volunteers to say who wants to be part of that group. And then when we get to the next task and finish group, it may well be that different members want to be part of that. So every committee member will have the opportunity to be involved in a task and finish group at some point, and we won't all have to be involved in all of them. And if we agree on a starting point tonight, it doesn't mean that we're not going to do the others. It's just a case of timing. Councillor Perry, please.
Yeah. Just thinking about the refuge on beaches, obviously that's an important issue, as is littering throughout the countryside. The question I've got is, what is the scope in regards of accessibility to beaches? Is that getting a person who's mobility impaired without a car to the beach, or is it getting somebody from the prom down a few steps onto the beach? So that link, to start off with, we need to know the scope of where that is, and I'm not quite sure what the scope is.
Muted, Chair. Sorry, Chair, still muted.
Sorry, thank you. Apologies. So, Councillor Perry, that's the first thing the Task and Finish group is going to have to decide. So what we'll do is we'll agree the priority tonight where we're starting. We'll agree membership. And then the first thing we'll do as a Task and Finish group is agree the scope of the work. That will help us consider who we want to invite to be part of that work, because it will almost certainly not just be members of this committee. There will be other, I'm sure, interested parties around all these suggested topics that will want to get involved at various stages. So we don't have the scope tonight because we're not ready to do that. That will be one of the tasks for the Task and Finish group. Okay, so what we appear to have is certainly support for Task and Finish group about greater accessibility to beaches in the Vale of Glamorgan. And then you'll see the advice from officers is that the Task and Finish group around litter and refuse on beaches could easily and probably helpfully follow on from that piece of work. So can I suggest that we start with the accessibility to beaches in the Vale of Glamorgan, and we agree that's the first priority, unless there are any dissenting voices. And then we also agree that the second Task and Finish group for us will be looking at the interlinked issues of refuse on local beaches and the wider matters around local holiday resorts. So can I start off by saying, is there broad agreement around that? Please just indicate if you're not happy with that suggestion, because it's up to us. Great, good. I'm going to take the liberty of suggesting that the third priority for us might be looking at the results of the tenant satisfaction survey. But rather than kind of getting into that issue tonight, if it's all right, Mark, we'll just agree the first two Task and Finish groups. And then once we've had a go at that, we'll come back and we'll look at the other three and agree what our next priority is. Is that okay?
That'll be fine, Chair, as long as committee are happy to agree the first two, and then we can revisit a third one at a later date, even if necessary, bring a further report back for committee to consider.
Lovely.
I'll propose that, Chairman, if I may. Propose the two you recommended to committee.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Councillor William, you happy to second that?
Yes, I was going to second. Thank you, Chair.
Good. So now, in terms of the first Task and Finish group, which just to remind you is about greater accessibility to beaches in the Vale of Glamorgan for people with disabilities, such as wheelchair users and others. Can we have volunteers for membership of that? I'm going to say I would really be delighted to be part of that group. Kirsty, you've already indicated as the proposer of this topic that you'd like to participate, so thank you for volunteering. And who else have we got? Councillor Norman, I think you've also said that you would like to be part of the group. Oh gosh, look at this, we've got loads of people. Councillor Inucci Williams, Councillor Champion, you want to be part of the group as well? Yep, great. Councillor Inucci Williams, are you volunteering as well?
Yes, please.
Thank you. We've got Councillor Norman, Councillor Stallard. Yeah, wanting to be part of it. Excellent. Councillor Ernest.
Well, yes, please, Chairman, as the lead for the group, if I may. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Drake. It's going to be the whole committee if we carry on like this.
Yes, I'd be pleased to be involved in that.
Lovely, thank you. And Councillor Ball.
I'd be happy to join if there's space.
Thank you. So, Mark, I hope you're counting the enthusiasm of committee members that want to be involved. How many is that, Mark? Because I lost count.
Right, just making count at the moment. What have I got, Chair? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I make it at the moment.
And are we allowed to have that many?
I don't think there's a maximum limit. We've just suggested a sort of range between 4 and 6, but I think obviously there's a lot of interest in this topic, so I think it would be unfair to exclude members. So I think 9 should be fine, you know, for the purposes of this, and also it will be more beneficial because there's a lot more of ideas and a lot more interplay of people as well. So it should be beneficial. So there's no issue with that, Chair.
That's excellent, and I'm absolutely delighted that there's so much enthusiasm to participate in what I think is a really important topic. So thank you, committee. The formal recommendations were that we prioritise and agree the order in which the task and finish reviews are to be undertaken. So we've done that. That the size, composition and membership of the task and review group is agreed, and we've done that. So thank you, committee. Those recommendations are clearly agreed. Mark, in terms of next steps, will you be contacting us so that we can coordinate and agree when we're going to meet and how we're taking this forward?
Yeah, I'll reach out to the members involved. Obviously, we got recess coming up, so realistically, probably the first meeting proper will be in September, but I'll reach out to all the relevant members of the task and finish group beforehand over the next coming weeks, just to talk about first steps and set up a meeting.
And over the recess, it gives us all an opportunity, doesn't it, to go with perhaps fresh eyes and look at the facilities that are available. And hopefully when we do come back together in September, we'll be brimming with examples of good practice and challenges. So thank you again, Kirsty, for your suggestion. I don't have any other items, so it just remains for me to say thank you, committee, for your engagement this evening. And just to remind you that our next committee meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 16th of September at 6 o'clock. Thank you all and good night.
Very good night to you, Chairman.
Bye, everybody.